Good evening, and welcome once more to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things horrifying and disgusting. I am your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo, and I can't keep up this accent.
You should have said Vlad Gonzo.
Vlad Gonzo? Yeah, I don't know, that wouldn't have worked. Count Gonzo, maybe?
Count Gonzo. Gonzo the Impaler. Take it for what you will.
Gonzo the Impaler. Well, hello there. Alrighty. With us, as always, it's Epic Quest of Awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, how are you doing?
I thought I would try to follow that up with a witch voice or something, but I'm honestly just too tired to make that kind of effort. It's terrible.
Okay. Well, there's a joke to be made about you and witchiness, but I shall refrain.
Oh, so I should just do my regular voice.
Actually,
that's bitch voice. Sorry. Totally different.
Actually, I think the witch angle would have been more appropriate for Skyblaze, who sadly is not with us this evening. She is just having some health issues, and so we wish her the best and a speedy recovery. But I see that Brian has returned from his long sojourn to Orlando, and
Who?
Oh, well, alright, I guess I'll leave now.
Oh, you! Didn't you, used to work here or something?
I thought I did. I guess, maybe. Bye.
Brian's been out on assignment for the last several weeks to Orlando, Florida, but now his assignment is completed, and now I must ask Brian, did you bring the item that we discussed? Did you bring me the still beating heart of Horus Horsecollar?
No, you're weird. Stop being weird.
That would be a real challenge.
Brian made it out to Disney while he was out down there. Which now my next question: did you manage to see the Disney jail? Because they've got a jail down there.
I did not see the Disney jail. I was on my best behavior.
I have seen the inside of the Disney jail.
You were not on your best behavior, I take it?
Well, let's just say that there's a reason why I want the still beating heart of Horus Horsecollar.
I will say I accidentally got my picture taken with Mickey because I thought I was in line for a show and it was actually a photo op. So that was interesting. Like, it's your turn to get a picture. I'm like, a what?
Now, hang on. You accidentally got a picture with Mickey. It's not the first thing you do when someone goes to Disney. You make a beeline for Mickey Mouse. That's the first thing I did.
So I was waiting on some friends. I was like, I'm going to wait. Oh, there's a magic show because magician Mickey. I was like, oh, I'll go see this show. This will be probably fun. And I waited in line. I was like, oh, there's Mickey right there, and a photographer. And what have I walked into?
Thought I was in the Donald Duck line.
I am disappointed now. So there is a picture of me with Mickey. Unfortunately, it cost me $50, so I decided not to buy it. But they do have a picture of me with me, and it was a good time.
Okay, awesome. Well, glad to have you back. We have a fun and spooky show for you tonight. For our Halloween show this week, we are examining horror tropes in space.
No, you said that wrong.
I did?
Horror tropes in space.
Horror tropes in space.
Where
no one can hear you scream, despite the fact that there's a lot of fucking people up there screaming. We look at the number of horror movies that are set or involve space in some way. So anyway, but yes, that's going to be a fun time. But of course, there is procedure to follow, and so we are going to begin, as always, with the random topic of the week, which we're going to follow up on last week's topic. We discussed what would we want to see in a geek-themed haunted house, and Brian was not here for that discussion. So, Brian, let's start with you. I want to ask you if you were first off, have you ever been to any haunted houses ever in your life?
I was at the Haunted Mansion.
Close enough.
Okay. At this point, you're just bragging.
How else was I going to answer that question? We're talking about theme parks the last 30 minutes. I don't know what else to talk about. I mean, what do you mean by like just like the haunted houses that you see nowadays that people just sort of walk through and you get jump scares at?
Just any kind of haunted attraction.
Not recently, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. Okay. The reason why this conversation came up last week was a couple of weeks ago. I went with my girlfriend to Field of Screams, and then on Halloween night we're doing Terror Behind the Walls at the Eastern State Penitentiary. Mother always said I would wind up in prison. I just don't think she anticipated it to be this way. So the conversation last week was we talked about things that we would like to see in a haunted house. Like Kat mentioned that she wanted to do a Slender Man style thing. It was a little more psychological. And we have kind of like a haunted maze, and I came up with the badass idea of a Resident Evil style haunted attraction where you're given a laser tag gun and you have to defend yourself from zombies who are trying to quote unquote kill you by sticking a thing on you that would deactivate your laser gun. So if you were to design a haunted attraction, Brian, how would you do it? What would you put in it?
I think since escape rooms are slowly becoming more and more popular, I think you can easily combine a sort of intellectual property escape room type scenario. Maybe be it Nightmare on Elm Street, where you escape one room and you kind of keep moving in through the dream world, trying to get away from Freddy and things like that. So not just one room, but maybe a couple of rooms to escape from. That's really the only thing I can come up with off the top of my head, since I didn't have anything set up for this. But that's something I think would be kind of cool about it. It's more interactive than, let alone the jump scares that you sometimes will get.
Okay. Yeah, I mentioned, I kind of touched on that last week. I mentioned a Saw style one where you've got to dig through a quote unquote corpse, which would really just be a bunch of rubber balloons and blood sauce them to find a key or something. But we've gotten some interesting responses here in the email. Sarah wrote back that she would want to see an alien themed haunted house where you would be stalked by a xenomorph throughout the attraction.
Oh my god.
So she doesn't specify whether it would be an animatronic one that would pop up at prearranged areas, or a guy in a suit actually like traveling around in the rooms, or maybe crawling through vents, which that would scare the ever living shit out of me, doing something like that. And then we've got one here from Richard, and he writes he would like to see a haunted house built in the style of the artworks of H.R. Giger.
God, why? Do you ever want to sleep ever again?
Well, like the thing that raises my eyebrows is like, if you want something like that, just go to Giger's actual house on a tour, because the man's madness did not limit itself just to the canvas. So, and then Kat, we've got a few responses here that want to build on your Silent Hill style idea that you mentioned. Someone thinks that that rebuilding Centralia, Pennsylvania, as an actual Silent Hill style theme park would be awesome. If you could just get over the fact that underneath the ground is a burning hellscape with emitting lots of poisonous gases.
Oh, you sign a waiver and you're fine.
You sign a waiver, but is it bring your own gas mask, or do they provide them? Like these are the questions you've got to answer when you're planning a family outing.
Can you just regularly buy gas masks now? Is that a thing?
I'm sure Sunny Surplus has a few.
All right.
But my favorite of the responses we got back, and this one came from Paul, and he wanted to do a haunted camping ground in the style of the Blair Witch Project.
Ooh, see, that would be fun. Also because I lived kind of near where the Blair Witch Project supposedly happened, so that was actually like a thing when I was in school, like in middle school. That's a thing people did. People would go camping there and freak each other out.
Okay, so we've gotten some good responses here on haunted house that we'd like to see designed or see happen. So so now we're going to move on to Ask a Geek, and we have a number of Halloween themed Ask a Geek questions. So I've got a few good ones here. First one here, and first I'm gonna apologize to some of the people who I'm reading their questions. A lot of these have been sent in the email for a while. I tend to kind of hoard all the Halloween ones just for the Halloween shows because, who want, it doesn't make sense to answer a Halloween question at Christmas. So for some of you people who've sent in questions and they're only just now getting read, sorry for the delay. But Emily writes all of us, what is the grossest moment you've ever seen in a horror film? Like a moment that just totally just grossed you out. You had to hide, cover your eyes and just couldn't bear to watch it.
Oh my God. I unfortunately went with some friends to go see the movie The Descent, which I would call a horror movie. I don't know what that movie was supposed to be, but it was very strange. And it's not scary per se. The part that I'm thinking of, that was kind of a scary movie. Just getting chased around in a cave by some golems is pretty gross. But there's a part where one of the women in the movie breaks her leg and the bone pierces the skin.
Oh!
And then she's got to run from all of these nightmare creatures. And to me, that was like the worst. That was like my tipping point in like film watching, where I was like, I can handle everything but that. I can handle everything in a film that's like violent and punching and shooting and guts and blood, but I cannot handle dismemberment or bone protrusion. It's just haunting.
Okay.
And I think it's partially because it could happen to you. Like you could fall off of something and have a bone.
Given your medical history, it's probably because it's more likely to happen to you.
I know. I'm really bad about that sort of thing. As my foot that I broke last year is just achy as hell today on the day that we were recording. And I'm like, yeah, let's never have anything where the bone protrudes.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go any further, I'm going to make a rule. No one's allowed to cop out and say the human centipede. We all realize that nothing will ever top that. So
that's just gross. Like,
well, that's the question. What's the grossest moment you've seen in a horror film? And I'm saying, let's not take the easy way out. Okay, I got one. This is like, I'm kind of like Kat. I can watch a lot of violent stuff and just like I not only won't blink an eye, I'll be like laughing. I'll watch somebody get blown up with a grenade and I'll be like, ha, that's awesome. But there's and I'm also, anyone who knows me personally knows I'm a huge fan of zombie movies. But there's one that I absolutely cannot. There's one moment in one specific zombie film that I absolutely cannot sit through, and that is Zombie 2. The scene where the one girl's trapped in some kind of wooden closet or something, and a zombie reaches in and grabs her and pulls her slowly towards this large wooden splinter and you see it go through her eyeball.
Yeah.
I'm just like, nope. I'm out. That once that scene starts, that's it. I'm in the kitchen or I'm in the bathroom. I'm not. No, I can't watch that. That just that gives me the Ghiblies. I just like I can't watch that. Ooh, okay. Brian, what about you? What's the number one horror movie gross out moment for you?
I have to really think back because I don't watch too much horror. But there was a film I think called Galaxy of Terror. Like,
oh no, I'm gonna stop you right there because I know exactly what you're talking about. No.
I'm telling you, you need to go on because our audience deserves a show.
I don't know if I want to go on now. He put a kibosh on that very quickly. I don't,
because I know exactly what. Look, is it the? I'm gonna type something in a direct message, and you just tell me.
This is gonna be fun,
and you just tell me if I'm right.
So this now you have to remember this is an audio show, so people can't see what Gonzo is doing. But Gonzo is typing out a message to me right now before I can say anything.
So
which I haven't gotten yet.
Which I accidentally sent to Craig, who can't say shit. So I'm going to type this. You just tell me if my guess is right.
Oh, poor Craig, just like, what? I don't care. Yeah, you're right. It's yeah.
Yeah, no. Let's maintain some decorum.
It's a gross scene that about, well, it's just called, listen, okay. A maggot's involved. If you want to look it up, go look it up. But it made me go, and I didn't want to watch it anymore.
Oh, God.
Yeah, no.
Galaxy of Terror is not a very good film, but it's it's kind of a gross film, and that's why I think it has like a cult following now.
Oh God. Oh, while we're discussing creepy crawlies, I've got another one that I like to bring up. Going in a much smaller direction, but you ever see the Candyman movies?
No, thank
You
you.
have the bees, right?
Yeah, the dude covered in bees. Well, there's a scene in one of the movies, I can't remember which one it is, but it's the one where he's trying to find a bride, and he's got this woman held captive, and he's doing the whole, you shall live here and be my bride, and he goes to kiss her, and he opens his mouth, and you see all these bees inside his mouth, and he just plants this big sloppy bee-filled kiss on the woman, and it's just like, oh God. I hate insects on the best of days, but the thought of one of them even approaching an orifice, let alone going actually inside my body, just.
All right, that's our show, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it.
Come back next year when I'll have equally cringeworthy topics.
Any other movie moments that have given you the
I fear if we do answer that question, we may never get on with it. So let's just get on with it.
All right. Okay. All right.
Get on with it.
All right. Well, let's see here now. Okay. All right. Oh, here's a really fun question. This one comes from Rachel, and she writes, if you could be any horror movie monster or villain, which would it be?
Bees. Oh, sorry. I thought you were emphasizing bee for some reason.
No, the emphasis is hers. If you could become any horror movie monster or villain, what would it be? So, Brian, let's start with you on this one.
Jason Voorhees, I guess.
Really?
I don't know. He's ever living. He's a strong, silent type.
Yeah, but then everywhere you got to go, you got to listen to that going off in the background.
You realize you're talking to a wrestling fan. You realize how awesome it is to have your own theme song follow your own.
Without having to pay someone to follow you around with a boombox.
It's the greatest feeling in the world, guys. You have no idea. You walk into
Brian?
Hello?
Oh, thank God he's still here.
You cut out for a moment there.
Thought I was going to have to take a shot.
Well, welcome back to the usual thing. But yeah, no, I want my own theme song following me.
Okay. All righty. Kat, what about you? If you could be any horror movie monster or villain, what would it be?
I don't know. I'm pretty basic. I'd probably want to be a vampire. I don't like the daylight to begin with anyway, so it's probably a good fit for me.
All right, now when you say vampire, are we talking like a Dracula, a Count Orlok, an Edward Cullen? What are we talking here?
I mean, I could go for underworld kind of vampire. It's not super vampire. I don't like the. I'm not a Nosferatu, clearly.
I could
underworld vampire, the fan fiction vampire where you live some lavish underworld life and just having fancy dress parties and wearing cool clothes. That's the kind of vampire I would be.
I could see you in tight leather and a corset. Yeah.
Well, have fun imagining that, everyone else.
All right, let's see. For me, if I could be any horror movie monster or villain, I think I would pick. I think I'd pick John Carpenter's The Thing, because it's a shapeshifter, and not only would I be nigh unkillable, but I could become anything I damn well pleased. So, and I'd be great fun at parties. Be like, oh, Gonzo, you all right? You all go like, I don't know, I've got a bit of a stomachache. He's like, oh,
yeah, you'd be great at parties.
You will never be invited to them. But you're a shapeshifter, so you can go someone has been.
I know, right?
I could invite you to my fancy vampire parties where we have masquerades, because clearly that's what vampires do.
Of course.
And if you ever get sick of how your body is, hey, just tear your head off, turn it into a spider, and then grow yourself a new one.
Like you do.
Okay. All right. Let's see. This one might be a little closely related to our first question. But this one comes from Danny, and he asks, "What is a horror movie that you absolutely refuse to see. Like one that
The
you absolutely won't go
Human
anywhere near. Anywhere near.
Centipede. I will never watch that film.
Yeah, kind of with that one. No one's gonna watch Human Centipede in this group.
This is where I've got to say that I have actually seen it.
Well,
Yeah.
I haven't, and I feel better.
Yeah, that's one of like 3 bets in my life that I actually regret making.
Oh God, your gambling addiction.
Yeah,
It has cost you things.
yeah.
Things that you can never get back.
Long story short, a friend of mine bet me that I could see it without getting sick. We went to the theater. About an hour later, I came out $20 poor and about 3 pounds lighter.
And gross.
But typical.
Right. I also will never see the Hostel franchise because that's just torture porn.
Oh yeah, that's I don't want to. That's one of those things where it's like you don't want to watch it, not because you're grossed out, but because you feel morally wrong seeing it.
Exactly. So there's another series I will never watch.
I actually try to avoid anything that's been vaguely torture porn because I don't. For my horror, I like the more subtle, spooky, haunted house horror kind of stuff, and less of the torture and mayhem and blood and sawing off your own limbs kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay. All right. But Kat, what's your answer? What's a horror movie you won't go anywhere near?
No, the Human Centipede. I won't go anywhere near it. It's not happening. It's not a thing. Or
Okay.
like the Saw series. I've never watched any of them. It's not going to happen. Like I would watch like The Ring, but I won't watch anything involving Jigsaw. It's just not happening.
I know a lot of people are like that, which is so funny because like the Saw franchise became like a cartoon by the end of the series, and now
Right,
like, all right,
like
time to reboot it. You're like, are you serious?
It's a
Of the
parody of
franchise
itself
you
at
don't
this
need
point.
the reboot. Is this one?
Okay, and let's see. Here is a. Okay, here's another. Here's a really good question. This one comes from Lisa, and she asks us to design our own movie horror monster. So, okay, Kat, let's start with you. If you were to design a monster out of your deepest nightmares, what would it be?
I have really bad monster dreams on occasion, but they're very unclear. So my truest monster that I have been terrified of since I was a kid is actually just Eyes in the Dark. I read some book when I was a kid. It was like, I really feel like it was some like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck book, and there was like freaking glowing eyes in the dark, like they were camping or some shit. And every time I see eyes glinting in the dark, even if it's my own goddamn cat, I still get a little freaked out. So that's how my monster would start, would just be all you see are the eyes. After that, I have no idea. I mean, my ideal monster, like the best one you could possibly put on film, or the best one you could put in literature, because that's a totally different story right there.
Just whatever your ideal monster would be. Like you get the say on this one.
I don't know. I mean, I don't have like a visual. I have some concepts, if that's okay.
That's
Glowing
fine.
eyes. Gotta have glowing eyes. Woods at night. It can't be too humanoid. More like a black mass, like a oozing, kind of shifting black mass. And then it reaches out and kills you. That's yeah.
Okay, so your greatest fear is the nothing from the Never-Ending Story.
Pretty close. It's like a culmination of a couple of dreams I had 5 years old that I still think about once in a while.
Okay.
So, yeah. Ugh.
All right, Brian. What about you? What's your ideal? What if you were to design your own movie monster or a villain? What would it be?
It's really hard just because I feel like there's so many of them that sort of exist now. But like I, as a child, I still had like, it sounds weirdly stereotypical, fears of just, darkness and like closets and basements and stuff like that. So mine would probably be more like a shadow, if anything else. Like, because it's something you kind of see out of the corner of your eye, but it's not there, and you like kind of look away and maybe it is there. Like that just feeling of uneasiness. So like a shadow like substance or creature would be something I would try to push for. It could take a form of something. It can actually hide. It can be like dual shadows, kind of thing like that. So like that would be mine. I don't know if it's as creepy or as scary as a lot of other people, but yeah, darkness is bad.
Okay. Okay. We're apparently joined tonight by Mr. Mackey.
That's not gonna. No.
Okay. Oh, let's see. Scariest horror movie monster that I could think of. Okay, I'll tell you about this one's based like cats on a nightmare I had when I was a child, and it was a giant spider, but all 8 legs ended in vaguely humanish hands, and it had a vaguely humanish face, and it would sing like twisted nursery rhymes as it wrapped you up in a cocoon of webbing and prepared to suck out your guts.
I literally just got the chills thinking about how gross that sounds.
Yeah, and the thing that I remember, actually the worst thing that I remember about this nightmare was I don't remember exactly how it happened, but somehow or other the big spider wound up getting killed, and then it disintegrated into a million small ones that then swarmed over me, and that's where I woke up.
Oh my god!
So yeah, that was that. Yeah, the spider with the human face and hands. That would be probably the scariest thing in film that I could imagine. I don't know what that says about my imagination, but whatever. Make of it what you will. So, but yeah, sound off in the comments or in the emails. What are some of your favorite horror movie monsters, villains? What's a horror movie moment that just totally grossed you out? Let's hear from you. And of course, you can always send your Ask a Geek questions to us at drgonzo@nerdtothethirdpower.com, or you can drop them in the comments below the YouTube feed. We do occasionally troll through our comments for Ask a Geek questions. So yeah, get your questions in. You might get it read on the air. And if you send us Halloween questions, it might be a while. So anyway, on to now that we've had our vegetables, let's go right to the meat of this discussion, or I should say the candy for Halloween, and that is horror tropes in space. So why does space? We're going to talk about why space makes such a great setting for horror films and some of our favorite in space horror stories. So let's just open up the floor here. Why do you guys think space is an effective setting for a horror film?
Space is full of the unknown. Like, think about that for a second. We don't really know what's out there, and it's just, hey, it's like being in the middle of the ocean kind of thing. Not only you're out there, you're trapped. You can't really go out anywhere. You are stuck in whatever ship or thing that you're stuck in. So there's a hint of a claustrophobia kind of going with it as well.
Okay, Kat, what about you? What makes space an effective horror scenario for you?
Well, I mean, it is like the last great frontier of the unknown. Not just the feeling of being trapped. Actually, the claustrophobia of space was the first thing that I thought of. But the idea that it is endless and vast while being claustrophobic at the same time is this really great contrary feeling that it's so big, but is it empty? Just the not knowing what could be out there, what could be coming for you. That's why we have so many like meteors and asteroid movies and shit like that, because that's something that we know and we can comprehend and understand that could come for us one day. But why we make so many alien movies where the aliens just look like people, because we can't comprehend something beyond what we already understand.
Well, and also Ridley Scott also beat us to all the good alien movie monster tropes.
We're like doomed. Like everything's got to look like bipedal humanoid. So, like, we know that space exceeds our imagination, which probably means that space exceeds our greatest fears, because we can't even imagine what horror might lie out there, but we do know enough about space to know that you should be scared of space. All the things that can go wrong, that have gone wrong, and we have plenty of movies to show us. It is genuinely terrifying. I think it actually is really brave to go into space, like just your everyday Joe Schmo scientist astronaut who go into space.
I've never heard. I gotta say, I've never heard anybody describe an astronaut as an average Joe Schmo.
You're an average astronaut as opposed to be astronaut.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
you're an astronaut.
Yeah,
you're a goddamn astrophysicist, genius, awesome person who's in really good health who goes into space. But like your average astronaut, like a real life astronaut as opposed to a movie astronaut.
And people who say that astronauts can never be scary. Look up a picture of Buzz Aldrin right now. That man's built like a brick house, and he's like 70.
So space is just it's such a great contrary. The vastness and emptiness of space, but then also the claustrophobia of how you survive in space, because it's one of those things where it's so easy to die. It's like a submarine, but in space.
To me, one of the things that terrifies me about horror movies in space is the idea of, the very technology that gets us out there maybe turning on us. Ooh. And us being reliant on could turn around and just. I mentioned this on the show. Horror stories. One of the favorite all-time first-person horror title called System Shock 2, and throughout the game, you are being assisted by this malevolent artificial intelligence called Shodan, who has told you up front that she plans to kill you, and that she has plans to. She basically has a god complex that she plans to remake reality in her image once you've helped her destroy the main, the main threat of the story. And so it's basically it's like a buddy cop movie from hell. The very thing that is helping you to achieve your goals and to destroy what's threatening you is the very thing that's going to turn around and destroy you once you're finished. And just that idea that, the technology and the machinery that we rely upon to get us into the stars and into the great unknown, what if it decides it doesn't necessarily want to help us out anymore? What if it turns on us, what if we design AI and it watches 2001 and goes, that Hal, he was on to something.
And space is one of those things where it's not a horror trope that you can accidentally walk into. It's not like, oh, this house that we're staying at for the night that we got trapped out in the rain is haunted. It's not, we were on a boat and got shipwrecked onto this creepy island. Like, you have to deliberately go to space. Like, you have to be on some sort of mission so you have a purpose in going there. And you have to be, with the exception of a few movies, you have to be pretty clever to go into space. You have to be the best of the best of the best, sir, with honors. And so it's like the characters aren't just like dumb college girl and other such tropes. Like, they're smart people generally who are like, if technology is turning on them, that truly is a nightmare, because the best qualified people on the planet to use that technology.
So I guess now let's segue into our favorite horror stories set in space. So Brian, why don't we start with you? What's your favorite horror in space?
I mean,
tale.
Well, since I don't watch a lot of horror in space, or just horror in general, it's really hard for me because I've seen Alien and Aliens and all that kind of good stuff. I've also seen like kind of crappy versions of it, like Apollo 18. I remember someone was talking to me about that one. Of course, it turned out to be a found footage film in space. So like, ugh. So, and then you mentioned, like Kat, how mentioned people go to space, they have to be the best of the best. She hasn't seen Jason X.
Right. Generally, I said with the exception of.
So,
well, I mean, there's exceptions to every rule.
Yeah. Oh, Jason X. Why? That's always something I find funny because that's a trope that kind of happens. That eventually, like a horror franchise has to go to space for some unknown reason. So Jason X, Leprechaun in space, all this kind of bullshit. I really don't have, like I said, I don't have too many that is like my go-to of like that's like a great like horror film taking place out in the open or out in the distant things of like space or anything like that. I'm way more, I guess like action or drama oriented at times. There is a film that's an old film I think called like the Planet of Vampires that has been recommended to me over and over again about a classic sort of series that takes place in space. So I might try taking that on a bit. So I'm just eating up time here because unfortunately I don't really have a lot to go for. I will say I kind of wish Predators were in space, even though they're usually on the ground or somewhere. I guess Predators, the second film, was technically on a different planet, but still, I don't think that really counts. I don't know. What do you guys have? You like I'm such a simpleton here, so I don't know what else you guys have.
Well, I mean, we're not just necessarily limiting ourselves to horror movies. If you played a good horror game set in space, or read a good horror, good horror comic set in space, I'll take a Doctor Who episode because God knows there's been more than a few of those.
Well, it's there have been, and at the same time, I don't really do that. Like even in that sort of scenario, I don't even read that many horror comics or anything like that. Now there were a lot of like anthology series. Tales from the Crypt or Tombs of the Horrors and stuff like that might have actually taken place or done something like that. I just unfortunately have not read them.
Okay, all right. So Brian's boring. Kat, what about you?
Wow, I don't watch much horror in space either, but the first thing I think of, other than Aliens, which is like the best, I was actually thinking of that Doctor Who episode, The Silence in the Library.
Ooh.
Because I was thinking about this earlier when Brian was talking about how his like monster would be a shadow, and I was thinking about the library episode where it was literally shadows.
I'm not very original.
It suffers from that slight claustrophobia because they are trapped in a library in space. It has the super spacey element of they have to stay inside their spacesuits. And it's something that they can't see, they can barely predict, and it's a pretty haunting couple of episodes. With my favorite companion, but that one's got to be one of my favorite horror in space TV episodes.
Okay, I'll tell you. Of course, Alien is my absolute favorite horror movie ever. So, but I've gushed about it elsewhere to the point where there's really nothing new that I can add to it. But I've also really kind of been fascinated with sort of the cosmic horror of space travel, where we might encounter something so vast and incomprehensible to us, and it would compared to it, we are but specks upon the great tapestry of existence. We're nothing more than dust motes. And I keep drifting my mind back to the Brethren Moons from the Dead Space series, who are these... The only way I can really describe them is imagine planet-sized reanimated corpses that go around devouring whole worlds. And you basically have the Brethren Moons. And, the way the Dead Space series ended, I thought was kind of, narrative robbery. But the more I focused on, I just thought about just the concept of something that vast and that humongous that we are but ants to it. It kind of fills with a kind of existential dread because we're so used to on Earth, being the king shit. We're the dominant species on the planet. Then we go out into space and we encounter something that's like, what are these little insects on this little tiny blue bus ball? Okay, all right, let me just get this giant ass can of Raid. And then we all die. And the room goes completely quiet, so that tells me that
we were dead.
Was completely...
We were dead.
we got a huge can of Raid in our face.
So, and I actually remember there was a story I read where it was a short story that I read somewhere where someone actually was on the story went that the scientist was on this like faster than light craft, and he was basically just traveling out as far as he could possibly go, trying to go further than out to the known limits of beyond the known limits of what we know about the universe, and he winds up going out beyond the furthest point that humanity has ever discovered, and he comes across God, and God basically just looks and goes, "What are you?" "Oh, you're one of those things that I created just out of accident one day." "All right, whatever, no big deal." And just
wow, God's a dick.
it was like to where this guy basically came face to face with the weaver of reality and finds out that all of humankind was just an accident, and he's completely forgotten about us, which would explain so many things.
I don't like how that story. I think if you, as this insignificant thing, meets God, God should be like, well done. I didn't think you'd get here.
Well, but then it wouldn't be a horror story.
Yeah, true, but that's what I'm just like. I was like, that's I don't know if that's
it'd be a Disney fairy tale.
I wouldn't do Disney fairy tale. I think it'd be more of a, I guess, a comedy. I think that'd be a good twist ending though. He's like, oh, congratulations, you win. I don't know what to give you.
Which is strange because I know all.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're kind of veering off topic here. So excuse me. So when you consider horror tropes in space, what do you think is more frightening? Is it the cosmic horror? Is it the isolation? Or is it the possibility of technology turning on us? What is the granddaddy of the space horror tropes for you? What's the thing that terrifies you the most?
Suffocation.
That is one that's really high up there.
For me, it would be suffocation, because my biggest fear is drowning, because I've almost drowned a couple of times when I was a kid, because I lived on an island. Anyway, so for me, it would be like the lack of oxygen. Just the you get jettisoned into space for some reason, and then you suffocate. Like, even though you might freeze to death first, my fear would still be suffocation.
Or if you happen to breathe in before you went out, then the pressure equalizes and you just pop.
Right. Either way, like, I don't want to die for air. That's like my hugest in the whole of life. I don't want to die gasping for air. So like anything where somebody has to like hold their breath in space, or like you're running low on oxygen because the oxygen levels have dropped because your system's down and the power's out in space, and you're like, just, you can't breathe anymore. That to me is like one of the like most anxiety driving tropes for a space anything.
Okay, Brian, what about you?
For me, it would be the isolation of everything. So if you were just, for whatever reason, by yourself for any long periods of time like that, it doesn't even have to have an alien or a monster, or maybe technology failed, whatever. You're just floating around in this big sea of nothing, and you can't get out, and your time is slowly ticking away. That's what would absolutely destroy me. Like
suddenly you're Ren Hoek in the Space Madness episode.
I mean, it's something like that, but it's
thinking a bar of soap is an ice cream sandwich.
Well, I mean, yeah, a little bit, but because humans are social creatures. Like, even the most antisocial of us at least would want at one point in time the smallest amount of social, even if they despise it. Just someone saying hello, like, okay, that's fine, and they go away. Like, to be by yourself and you can't escape, you have no way of traveling, and your time is limited, it would drive you to madness. Like, would you wait for it, or would you do it yourself, kind of thing? And like, that's a question I don't like asking myself. So that's where a lot of my internal fears come in. So to be in space and be like that would be absolutely terrible. Like, to me, I think one of the scariest things is one of our Apollo missions. Houston, we have a problem. Like, how do we get back? We're in space. That's to me the biggest fear ever. Is like, how do I get back to a place and home?
Okay, all right. You must have really hated The Martian then.
You know what? I never read The Martian, nor did I. I'm slowly working my way through Ready Player One right now.
Ah, okay. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. 'Cause I absolutely hated that book.
Well, we'll see.
So, but yeah, kind of leaping off that, because yeah, it's like, especially like if you're on one of those deep space missions and suddenly, you know, your communications go out, you know, or your engines die out, and suddenly you're just adrift and you can't even call for help. I mean, it's not like when you get lost in, say, downtown, you're just like, oh, I'm just a couple miles away from the Burger King. No, I'm billions of miles away from anything else. There's no point of reference that I can give you as to where I'm at. It's not like I can tell you, hey, turn left at the moon. So the idea that you might be just, lost out in space and no one would fucking know where you are, or even that you're even out there. There's a very horrible bit of a fridge horror if you consider the opening to the second Aliens movie, where Ripley's capsule is just drifting through space and she gets found. Okay, someone's apparently recording from a traffic jam.
Sorry, I don't know what my neighbors are doing.
I've completely lost track of what I was saying.
Ripley in space.
Oh, yeah, Ripley in space, where Ripley's capsule is floating. There's a particularly disturbing bit of fridge horror if you consider the opening of Aliens, where Ripley's capsule is floating in space and she gets picked up by a salvage crew, and she finds out she's been floating in space for 57 years, and it was just completely blind luck that she was found at all. Like, can you imagine being in her position at that time and finding out that you completely drifted past civilization and you were about to go out into the vast nothingness, and it's only by sheer dumb luck that you got found by the intergalactic equivalent of a fisherman?
Well, we have been describing the space as kind of an ocean, so yeah.
Okay.
I mean, people get lost at sea. Like, there's not a lot of luck they're going to find them. That's just the ocean. The space is a huge ocean.
The hugest.
Like the biggest ever. It keeps expanding.
And it's getting bigger all the time. Oh my god.
And I'll tell you something else that I find the use of outer space and horror particularly effective is when you combine it with the supernatural. How many of you guys have either of you guys seen Event Horizon?
I was wondering if we were going to mention that, because like it feels like one of those immediate go-to stories and stuff like that. To answer your question, yes, but when everyone talks about like horror and stuff like that in space, everyone goes to Event Horizon.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen Event Horizon, it's about a spacecraft that is out testing faster than light travel. And because nobody has played Doom, they don't realize that they don't see this shit coming. So they wind up accidentally traveling through hell and bringing a little something back with them in the form of a demonically possessed Sam Neill, who, he's the most terrifying thing in that film. I never thought Alan Grant would be in my nightmares, but there he is.
Well, sometimes depending on what accent he's using. So that can be pretty scary.
But it should be. It kind of plays into what we're talking about, how space is like the great unknown, and how maybe in the course of our exploration of outer space we may discover, pardon me, we may discover actual Euclidean representations of vague metaphysical concepts like hell. We may just over the course of creating teleportation or faster than light travel, just suddenly find ourselves in hell, or in another dimension where fucking Cthulhu is looking down on us. It's like, oh hey, a snack.
I feel like the devil's reaction should be the same as God's. Like if the devil was just hanging out and all of a sudden a spaceship goes through hell and like disappears, like what the shit was that? Like, I don't think, again, he wouldn't be angry. He'd just be either more confused or intrigued. Like, how did they do that? Calls up God. God, you would not believe what just happened. Is like, there's a spaceship travel? Yes. How'd you know? I'm God. Click.
Not the direction I thought you should say, because it happened to me last week.
Yeah. Like, get these humans under control.
Okay. All right. So, okay. Wow. All right.
Did you want me? I have something. I have a thought. Can I bring it up?
What is this? Thatcher's England? Say whatever you want.
Yes. Well, you sounded like you were going to segue into. You were struggling to find something else to talk about, so I was just making sure.
Go ahead.
So I can't remember like the last time I actually noticed a horror in space. I'm sure there's stuff that I'm just not paying attention to, but it kind of feels like, at least for large budget films, that we've moved towards, the science of space and, just making space more understandable while still blowing us away with how much we don't know about space. And more of a philosophical look at space and the beauty and wonder of space, and less about the just absolute terror. And do you think this is like a shift towards a more, like we think of space as less scary now?
I think in terms of films, yeah, partially because a lot of the horror in space have already been done to death in films, but I also think, yeah, because when you look at films from like the 90s and the 80s and before, and all the films that were the horror films that were set in space and around it, we knew comparatively, not nearly as much as we know now about outer space. So now it's almost, I think it's gotten to the point where, and I never thought I'd describe it this way, where outer space has become mundane. And I think it also might have something to do with the fact that right now there's nobody really on Earth who has a working space program. So we're not really doing any actual space exploration. So then maybe just this kind of collective subconscious is just like, why should I be scared of someplace I'm never going to go to? If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I can tell you that in gaming, horror, cosmic horror in space is still very much alive and well. And I think a lot of that, but I think that has to do with, again, the age of the medium. Video gaming is a very young medium. There's a lot of tropes that haven't been done yet, or can be explored in different ways than could be done in film. But it's horror in space is definitely very much alive in gaming. Certainly much more than it is in films right now. But yeah, now that I think about it, outside of Alien Covenant, and then Prometheus before that, which I'd almost count as the same thing, because again, it's the same director, same studio, same franchise. I can't really think of another horror film that was set in space that's come out in the last 10 years.
Well, you're missing one that actually came out this year called Life. You might have missed it because it kind of came and went. It's starring Ryan Reynolds and like Jake Gyllenhaal, where they found life in space, and then I think just started taking over like the International Space Station. But you're correct in terms of like, as I think a culture has moved away from being space is scary to, I think, wanting just to know more about what is happening in terms of what is going on. Like, we've sent, robots to Mars, and we've sent satellites around Jupiter and all these other things. We're getting all these cool like information being brought back to us. So I think I wouldn't say there is a less horrifying way of looking at it. I think there's more people want to know more, and when we want to learn more, it becomes less scary.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I was like, oh God, what happened?
So, all right. So I guess now let's ask the question. Specifically for films, what do you think it would take to make horror in space be a big thing in films again? What do you think it would take? What do you think would need to happen?
Well, I think it would help if we found life on Mars or something. Just like. Sorry, there's a very large car driving by. If we, got a couple more hints of, like we've discovered the possibility that there used to be life on some planet, that's usually a good spark.
An actual, like, real, can actually talk to us life, not this pussy ass, oh, there was bacteria here millions and millions of years. Not that kind of life.
Well, I mean, like, that's all we have to go on. So, if we could just find that on a few more planets, that could be, drawing in the conspiracy nuts who will advocate that some rock formation on some other planet looks like it could have been a face, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, Brian, what about you? What do you think it'll take for horror in space to be a big thing again?
I mean, that's a good start to it, and I think I really don't know. If I did know, I would make it. But two terrible joke aside, I really don't know what would it take, other than just maybe another interest in the, I guess, unknown, another sort of thing, like Kat had said, if we discovered maybe there was in fact some sort of life beyond our planet, we'd get back more into it, or just people trying to be a bit more clever with space. Like, yeah, aliens and unknown stuff is going really goes so far with it. We've done it so often now that as in terms of popular culture, it just seems it's redundant almost. So yeah, I think it would take a good deal, take a really good story or idea for us to finally figure out maybe the horrors of space again.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm thinking that as technology advances, I think we might start seeing space become a big thing again, because even though there's no real functional space programs right now. Of course, we are still developing new techniques for space travel and new technologies, and I think that as we start to develop artificial intelligence and machines that can think and decide and make logical decisions, I think we're going to start seeing space becoming a much more viable setting for horror films again, as we explore sort of that possibility of what if the machines turn on us. So, but that is a discussion for another table, and that is about all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. As I mentioned last week, we are going to be taking next week off because of Halloween. So we hope that you guys have a great Halloween and get yourself, lots of candy. Get yourself, go out to some haunted houses. Get yourself good and scared. I'll be doing Terror Behind the Walls, the Eastern State Penitentiary. So when we come back in 2 weeks, I'll be reporting on that, which that should be a fun time. But we'll be back in 2 weeks for Thor Ragnarok, which is going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to that. So yeah, that's all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. Happy Halloween. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the Cat.
And I'm Brian.
All right, we'll see you next week. Not next week. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Happy Halloween. Taka, play us out.